Gary, your dad was a miner down the gold mines, 31 years. Sadly, your mom died at an early age. I mean, it's not round the corner, Boyson's from King Edward School. How did you get there as a young kid?
We went by tram into town, walked across town, took bus 68 out to King Edward's, Orange Grove, basically. And I vividly remember my mother saying to me, "I'm sorry, my boy." I was 8 when she died, and she said, "I'm sorry you've got to travel all this way by yourself every day. But one day you'll realize and appreciate how important a good school is and how important education is," and how right she was. And there's no question, one of the reasons I became a world champion is because my mother made that effort to get me educated at a great school. You went there, you know what a school
great
is.
School. Gary, about 3 weeks ago, I went back to the school and I saw your photographs. It's high school. In the first team, rugby, red jersey, famous red jersey, fly half. First team cricket, swimming team, athletics team. Now let's talk about your cricket. I'm told you were an off-spin bowler. Can you recall getting a hat-trick?
Well, we were playing, I think it was Parktown. And
it was Athlone.
Was it Athlone? Gee whiz, what a memory you got. Well, you're a little bit younger than me. But anyway, I took 7 wickets for 1 run. And it was such a thrill, and a guy called Selwyn and Nathan picked me up on his shoulders and carried me off the field. And it was such a thrill because in Form 4, I got the award as the best all-rounder, and I got a cricket bat as an award, and I've lost that cricket bat. So 2 cricket bats would have been a significant thing in my study, Don Bradman and best all-rounder. I don't have them, but...
Well, what I can't work out, I mean, the morning you're at school, you're playing all these sports, and I've read that when you were 15 at high school, you were practicing 8 hours a day at golf. Is that possible?
No, I was not practicing 8 hours a day at golf when I was 15, but when I turned pro at 17, I practiced all day long, every day. I had an obsession to become a champion because I'd struggled so much, Ollie. But having to struggle like that really made me determined to win and to never choke. And I tell people I didn't choke, and they find that hard to believe. In fact, they don't believe me. But whenever I needed a 4 to win a massive tournament, I'd make a comparison of my life as a youngster, and that was Mickey Mouse. So I just got in there and made sure I tried to win.
And Gary, let me tell you when I went to King Edward's, and I'm sure every pupil that goes to King Edward's, there's a famous story about you. In Form 4, a decision you made, I think, to leave school.
Yeah. Even my father was disgusted when I told him I wanted to be a pro golfer at 17. He says, "No, you've got to go on and go to university. I don't know where we're going to get the money, but you've got to go to university." And I said, "No, Dad, the world is going to be my university."
But you left school in Form 4, correct?
I did.
The story we are told that Dan Henning said to you, when you said you're going to turn pro, he said you'll never make a living out of golf.
Well, there's several of them said that, but you can't blame them. I mean, if they said that to 100 youngsters, 98 would be correct, so you can't blame them. I never had any animosity towards that at all.
Gary, explain to me, at 17, 1953, you turned professional. Now, people like Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus had a long amateur career.
Yes, I did.
You never had one.
No, very little amateur career. See, it's all a matter of circumstances. They came from families that had some money. Well, we didn't, so I couldn't rely on my father to send me around playing in all these amateur events with clubs and a car. I had to go and turn pro and grind it out and be an assistant professional and get up in the mornings and go and practice very early, then go to the shop and work. I worked at Kalani for 3 years for David Black, £30 a month. And I'd have to do my duties there. And after work, I'd be practicing. And early in the morning, I'd be practicing. And then the members asked me to play a lot, which I did. So, but I practiced. Actually, I can sit here honestly and say this pair of hands hit more golf balls than any man that ever lived. But a computer says 11.4 million. Now, my chiropractor says, I don't know how you can still stand up because the wear and tear on your back. But the fact that I exercise profusely, which I promised my brother when he went to war, he stood there and he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to be a pro at some sport." He said, "You're small, you've got to exercise." And I've adhered to that for 63 years.
Gary, from your early days, you had a mounting obsession to become the best golfer in the world. Is that true?
I did. It was an obsession, and they have a great saying, if you want something badly enough, be careful you'll get it. And I just, besides practicing, I sat in front of the mirror in a Tai Chi position, and I used to slap myself in the face and say, you're going to have to suffer, you're going to go through pain, because it's such a tough game, golf. And to teach yourself patience, and if you're a little rude to somebody, it's what you call an association with one of your faults or one of your dreams to obtain, and you relate it to a bit of pain, and I did that a lot.
A fierce determination to win. Now, the other day I had coffee with Dennis Hutchinson.
Mm-hmm.
He said of you that he never met any golfer who wanted to win so badly as Gary Player.
Well, that's a nice compliment of Dennis to say that, and I appreciate that. I suppose there might be something in your genes, but I relate it to being poor, having no money. When I came home from school, I had to put my clothes, hang them up, iron them myself sometimes. Weekends, no shoes, bare feet, khaki pants. And I'd go out with my friends and play the other sports. Kennecky was a great game. I had a lot of Afrikaans friends. Played Kennecky, and I'd field all day, and I'd go in, have my turn to bat, and they'd get me out first time, back I'd go out there and field. So all the little difficulties that I encountered made me become a champion. I'm convinced about that.
Like Ben Hogan, as I've read, there weren't enough hours in the day to practice.
That's right.
Is that correct?
That's correct. You know what I did, Ollie? Sometimes I'd have to go to a dinner or to some engagement, and I'd come back to the hotel and I'd say to the hotel manager, can I use the gym? Sorry, it's closed. I said, please, I have to, I've got a routine. I promise you, I'll lock the gym, give me the key, gave it to me. I worked in the gym at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, sometimes 12 o'clock. Locked the gym, took it back at night, on my own, in the gym. So you have to go beyond the, I don't know what the word is, the pale. You've got to go beyond one's possibilities. You've got to make yourself, you've got to grind yourself. If you don't, because when you do that, you're cultivating determination as well.
Dennis told me two beautiful stories about you. Think back, 1954, it's the SA Open East London, you don't make the cut.
Yeah.
Sunday, 36 holes.
Yeah.
He made the cut.
Yeah.
So he tells me he goes around the first 18, and he comes, say, let's call the 7th hole. And you're in the bunker, and you're practicing.
Yeah.
He comes back in the afternoon, you're at the same hole, in the bunker, practicing. He said you practiced that whole day in that same bunker.
Player, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, bunker player in the world.
That's correct. And at Killarney, I had to start work at 8. I'd be in the bunker at 6 o'clock every morning, and I had to hold 5 bunker shots before I went to work. Sometimes I couldn't do it, so I did it after work. But there's no question, they say, the harder you work, the luckier you get, and I think that's a very good saying.
It was sheer will and determination and practice and more practice, and he got there.
A better story. You're about to go to the UK for your first tour. You're now at the Killarney Golf Course Club. And he comes to say cheers to you and wish you well. And he tells me it's a sweltering hot day. You're practicing in the bunker. He said you got your normal golf clothes, and over it you got weatherproof top and bottom.
Yeah.
And he said you're perspiring and you're perspiring. And he says to you, Gary, what are you doing? Do you remember what you said to him?
I do. I knew that I was going to have to play in high humidity around the world, and I knew I was going to have to play in cold weather and rain. And as soon as it rained at Killarney, obviously all the golf stopped. On my waterproofs, I went and practiced in the rain. And I do remember in the heat, and when I went out in the cold, sometimes I wouldn't put a sweater on because I wanted to acclimatize myself. What I did was, Ollie, I worked on my mind all the time to have a strong mind. And you read about so-and-so has a beautiful swing, he should be a champion, or he hits the ball a mile. Those are irrelevant. Doesn't mean a thing.
But let me finish the story. He said he left you that day and he said to himself, this chap's got to make it, big time.
Yes, he did, and Dennis was always very complimentary, and which I appreciated very much indeed. In fact, I went to Pretoria West one year, and this one pro said to me, you're going to break your body. You just can't hit so many balls. And I said, to the contrary, I look at the other way. The more I practice, the stronger my body comes.
Gary, your obsession with fitness, I mean, the world knows about Gary Player and weights and fitness. Why?
Well, first of all, being small in stature, you've got to try and make up for not necessarily the strength, but you've got to be fitter than your opponents. And secondly, it gives you a clearer mind when playing, makes you sleep better, makes you happier, makes you healthier. And having 22 grandchildren, 6 children, a wonderful wife, an obsession to now do other things in life, other ambitions. I'd like to try and raise R1 billion for charity for underprivileged children around the world, and I will do that as long as I live. I have a desire to design great golf courses. I enjoy after dinner and luncheon speeches around the world when I have time, represent a lot of companies, keep busy. And my farm here in Colesberg, that's my great happiness. That's my great obsession. And I want to be able to be well. I don't want to ask my staff to carry those poles, and I've got to sit and watch them. I want to do it with them.
In any particular session, how many crunches would you do?
Well,
press-ups.
Yes, the night before last night, I did 1,300 crunches, 1,300, and push-ups. I did 50. I pushed 300 pounds with my legs. Still, I can still push 300 pounds with my legs. And so no, I'm in good shape. Very few guys. The average man in the street of 30 wouldn't stand a chance.
But why weights? I mean, no golf at that time did weights.
No, it was a complete no-no. There were 2 of us that do weights. And one of the famous golf architects saw me squatting with 325 pounds the night before I won the US Open, which was the Grand Slam. And he said the next day, Gary Player will never last. 35, the maximum. Well, I won a tournament on the US Tour at 63. So weights build strength. Strength is speed. So you've got to do weights. Everybody's doing it now. It doesn't matter even if it's drafts or chess. People are doing weights because it strengthens the mind, it strengthens the body.
Did it allow you to hit a golf ball further?
Well, I've never put great emphasis on hitting the ball a long way.
Right.
What I've put emphasis is on short game, from 100 yards in. That's what wins golf tournaments.
He's played 2 shots to this 15th. What a good shot that was. Fine shot. Oh, what a good shot.
What an absolute killer blow by Player.
Tiger Woods is the worst driver on the American Tour today.
Where's that gone? Although his driving is very much more consistent, he's still prone to the odd wild one.
He and Phil Mickelson, who basically were rated number 1 and number 2 on the Tour, are the worst 2 drivers on the Tour.
This is 220 yards, and that's a 4-iron going left.
They rated something like 169th and 170th in accuracy. So that defies that. But where they're the best is from 100 yards in.
Try to hoist it over.
Thought I heard a little leaf touch.
Oh my goodness! Incredible. Can you believe this?
Just a wedge. A little bit right of the hole.
Spinning back within about 3 feet, maybe less.
Good minds, great minds.
I played with many cricketers, good cricketers. When the pressure was on, they wilted. I don't know if you know Steve Waugh.
Yes.
I've never known a cricketer under pressure that got the best out of him.
And there it is.
The home crowd are on their feet here at the SCG. Test match 100, number 24, Stephen Waugh.
They say about Gary Player, and like Ben Hogan, the pressure brought out the best in you. Is that correct?
I think that is correct. And talking about Steve Waugh, we did a thing for the Prime Minister Brown at that time, and we did it with Prime Minister Cameron, and Steve Waugh, Boris Becker, and myself on a bicycle through London, driving to 10 Downing Street, where the Prime Minister greeted us. Cameron sort of went to the side. But we did this, and I noticed with Steve Waugh, man, he was in and out that traffic. You'd think he were riding in the Arc de Triomphe or the Tour de France or something. I mean, this guy was a competitor. But you're right. This is what people don't understand about sports. It's not always the man who has the most ability. It's not the man in golf who hits it the furthest. It's not the man who particular point of view that is the best or his strength. It comes from the mind. You've got to have the right mind to be able to accept adversity. In fact, I often say the best athlete, in my opinion, is the man who enjoys adversity. Enjoys it.
And learns from it.
And learns from it. It's hard to teach yourself to enjoy adversity. If you can tell yourself, look, it's part of life, you've got to enjoy it because you're going to have it. So accept it. But most people, I think 40% of the world suffers from depression. And there's this great sense of entitlement. Young people are brought up where they don't know what adversity is. Let me take you to China and show you 200 million people really struggling. Let me take you to India, where, I mean, if you see some of the poverty in India, it's beyond one's comprehension. So you realize how lucky you are. And that's what you've got to do, is make comparisons. If you've got 3 meals a day, I talk to kids and I tell them, you've got 3 meals a day, you've got a television, you've got this, you've got that. Most children in the world don't have any of them, not even one.
Gary, in the late 90s, we had the best one-day team in the world, under the late Hansi Cronje. But there were a few occasions where we got to the finishing post, particularly against Australia. I wouldn't say they cracked under pressure, but they wilted. The World Cup semi-final in Birmingham in 1999, and Australia went through. And they were tagged as chokers. And psychologically, that stuck for a long time and affected their play. Now, that's common in any big sport.
It is.
Did you ever feel like choking, or how did you handle it? How did you handle it?
No, as I said to you, the one thing, and it's not a case of being arrogant, because there's a fine line between arrogant and confidence.
Agree with you.
Somebody said to me, do you think you'll win the tournament? I'd say yes. Or who's going to win the tournament? No, I'm going to win it. Next day, what an arrogant guy Gary Player is. But what am I supposed to say? Somebody else is going to win it? And having had the difficulties, and I keep coming back to the adversity side of things, having had that, I made the comparison. I said, now look, I'm going to be winning this Masters of the British Open today. Now, it's going to be tight. You're only going to win by one shot. Always remember what happened to you in your life. And playing in a golf tournament is no comparison to what you had. So give it your best, and your best will be good enough, because you know that you're going to win if you give it your best.
Jack tomorrow is 4 shots behind. He's going whoo, and I'm going phew. 3 shots is nothing, but it's going to be a hell of a day tomorrow.
Gary, in 1959, you win the British Open. The last day you start off 6 strokes behind.
Getting a double bogey, I thought, oh, I've blown it. And I walked off there and I was, almost in tears.
A big crowd watched Fred Bullock on the last green, just short with his first one. He was down for a final round of 74. Gary Player did better, but had to wait 2 nerve-wracking hours before learning he'd won. Youngest man ever to win the Open, over 72 holes, Gary Player of South Africa received the most coveted trophy in the game after a great triumph. The golfing world applauds his magnificent victory.
1978, you're age 42. US Masters, you're 7 strokes behind.
Some journalists had written Player off, describing him somewhat unflatteringly as a 42-year-old fading star. That hurt, and only made him more determined to prove the skeptics wrong.
Now, what goes through your mind that, I mean, you're gone, you can't come back? How did you win those tournaments?
Well, I had confidence that I knew if I could get my score on the board. If you ever get your score on the board and people have got to shoot at it, that's when the nerves come into it.
And I'm sure Gary Player must be breathing a sigh of relief behind the green. So, Ian Mosey, this putt to tie with Gary Player. Well, I don't believe it. A sad moment for this young man, and I'm afraid he just lost his concentration, and it's a moment that will live with him for a long time to come. The change in the leaderboard just taking place now. Gary Player The man who said that 280 would win this tournament finished on 279. A collapse on the final hole by Ian Mosey gave Gary Player his 12th South African Open Championship.
Well, you were a champion cricketer. You're captain of the Springboks. You knew what it was. You went in there against all these tough bowlers. You had the same philosophy I had. It all comes from here. It stems from here.
I mean,
you have a choice. You have a choice. You can be happy or you can be sad. You can be confident or you can be non-confident.
And I used to say to our team, look, they're two here. One's going to win, one's going to lose.
That's right.
Do you want to be the loser?
That's
Let's go out and win.
That's right. It's all a matter, it comes from the mind. And I always tell people when they tell me how great their son is or this guy, I said, tell me what sort of a mind he's got. I mean, I've seen golfers. Tom Weiskopf was a much better player than Palmer, Nicholas or Player. But this guy said, I hate golf. He started doing well, he'd sulk, he'd give up, he'd pick the ball up and go home. I mean, there was the greatest talent, but that happens in cricket, that happens in business. How many people have got such talent? Politics, doesn't matter what it is. And they just don't have the big match temperament.
Yeah. Gary, you won 9 majors. The only non-American to have won the Grand Slam.
Mm-hmm.
But of those 9, which one would you say gave you the most pleasure emotionally? Which one meant the most to you?
Very difficult because now I've got to win the Open, the British Open, and I was the youngest man to win it then, 23.
59.
59. Now I've got one leg in the Grand Slam. Now I go to America. Nobody's ever won the Masters, no foreigner.
Gary Player, blazing a remarkable trail in the last 3 months, sees his advantage in the Masters whittled down by the time he reaches the final hole. He has a 70 coming out of the trap. Palmer is 3 holes behind and going good. Player is not too happy, though he records a par 4 and a 280 total. Possible to get that par 4 now, but he still has a chance to tie Player with a bogey 5. He didn't get near enough, and here's the end of the golf drama. He's finishing with a 281 and has to settle for a second-place tie. Gary Player becomes the first foreign entrant to win the Masters.
Then it comes to the PGA, and I win that.
Little Gary Player of South Africa, only 5'7", 150 pounds, reaches the green on the 423-yard 18th in 2. Player sinks the short one, and when he reaches for the ball, he's momentarily frozen, so great was the strain. His 278 total wins the PGA.
Now comes the US Open. Now, there are a lot of players.
1965.
Yes, 1965. A lot of players have won 3, but not 4. So that was another adjustment I had to make. I never went out at night. I sat there, I went to a Catholic church, I didn't pray to win, I'm not a Catholic. I prayed for patience, to be able to accept adversity and a few other little things, and I go out there and I win that.
By the time they reached the 18th, Player had a useful 4-shot cushion. He bogeyed the hole, but it didn't matter. He'd become, after Gene Sarazen and Ben Hogan, only the 3rd man to win all 4 majors.
What a big thrill to be the 3rd man in history to win this Grand Slam, and so each one had its own particular place. And then I took my check of 25,000.
You gave it to charity.
And I gave it back because I made a promise to the secretary of the USGA if I ever won the US Open for the gratitude for what America had done for me. America has been a great Samaritan to the world. Yes, it's had its faults, but a lot of people forget just what America's done for the world, education-wise, money-wise, etc., etc., etc. And Winston Churchill, he said, why does he hate me? What have I done for him lately? You know, no good deed goes unpunished. Those are very, very true sayings.
I think they're losing their power today, but that's another story. But of those 9, from a technical point of view, from a perfection point of view, golfing point of view, any one of those 9 was your best?
I've got to put them all on a par because to win the Grand Slam, you just got to have everything going right. It's just got to be sensational. When you think then the history of the game, only 5.
Gary, throughout your career, that era was dominated by yourself, Jack Nicklaus, Arnie Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the other 2, and was Jack Nicklaus the best golfer of all time?
He certainly has won the most majors, and what he also did, which people forget, he finished second 19 times.
Majors, yeah.
19. But unfortunately, only your wife and your dog know who finishes second. That's a tough thing. You lose cricket by 1 run, you've lost. You might have played better than the other team, but you never won. But he was the most patient man I ever saw on a golf course. Phenomenal golfer. If you'd given him the equipment that they have today, no spike marks on the greens, bunkers all done with the machine, $1 million a week, your own private jet, all these things, he would have beaten Tiger Woods. I don't have any question in my mind. Arnold Palmer, a fierce competitor, you know, brought up tough.
Aggressive golfer?
Aggressive. If there was a hole in the tree, he'd take a 3-wood and try and put it through that tree. And sometimes he would, and sometimes he wouldn't. He said, I'm not interested in finishing second. I hate second. I'd rather finish 10th. So I go for everything.
On his army.
Yeah, and he came to South Africa, and he's the only man who picked up a bar of gold in his hand. His little finger is the size of my index finger. And the guy said, I've got a friend here, can he try and pick it up? He said, yes. He would pick it up. This guy got a heart attack. He said, no, I only work here. Arnold said, you did work here. This is mine, baby. But I mean, two fierce competitors, but we traveled the world, not for a lot of money, not getting $1 million appearance money like some of these guys, and Tiger sometimes $3 million. We went around the world promoting golf.
Palmer's 6-shot victory over Kel Nagel wasn't nearly as difficult as trying to get through his zealous fans to the final green. This would be Arnie's last victory pose with the claret jug.
And we wanted to beat each other so badly, and we told each other. We told each other, we want to beat you so badly, but when we beat each other, I beat Nicholas 6-4 in the world match play, and the next year 5-4. He came, shook my hand, looked me in the eye, put his arm around me, and said, man, you played well today, but I'll get you next week. Wonderful friendship, and we promoted golf around the world together.
And did Arnie Palmer smoke, I read somewhere? Is that
Big
true?
time.
Big time?
Big time.
On the golf course?
Oh, all the time. All the time. Big smoker, yeah.
Big smoker?
Big smoker. And also, he loved that little toddy at night. And he's 85, and he's going pretty strong.
Rory McIlroy, how good is he?
Rory McIlroy, I think, will be the next winner of the Grand Slam. He's a wonderful young man, got wonderful parents. He's absolutely brilliant. And what I love about it, he's aggressive. You'll never see champions playing safe all the time or having that word in their mind. You've got to win. You've got to win. And he plays to win. He's very aggressive. Now we're going to hear a lot from him.
I think what you said to me previously, that confidence without being arrogant, I think that's him.
Exactly. Absolutely. He oozes with confidence. And I don't never get the impression he's arrogant, but some people do. I don't.
No,
I love him.
No,
I love him.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think he's fantastic.
Gary, you now turn 50 and you play in the seniors, and again you win 9 of them.
Mm-hmm.
I've read that you said that achievement to you was probably a better achievement than winning the 9 on the traditional tours.
I did say that, Ali, and I said it for a very good reason. First of all, I'm playing against the same people that I played against all my life. But when I turned 50, there's no question, and I always heard when you get to 50, you're an old man. But when I turned 50, there was no difference between my fitness than when I was 25 years of age, because I'd worked on it so diligently, and also what I ate. These other guys didn't. They got heavier, they got out of shape, and so that's the reason that I did it. They've all tried. Tom Watson's come close, Nicholas came close, Palmer came close, Trevino came close, but they never did it. And they were scoring. The amazing thing is you see the mind again. They went on to golf courses that were 7,000 yards, not short courses like everybody thinks. They were shooting 15 and 16 under. They were doing the same scores they did when they were young guys on the senior tour, simply because they said, well, now I'm not playing against these young guys anymore. I'm playing against guys my age. So the scores were absolutely brilliant. And I had no question in my mind that it was a better achievement because of my fitness and my mind.
Would you have not wanted to play golf today? Travel, it's quicker, more comfortable, better equipment, the golf courses are better, more money. I mean, Phil Mickelson, I think I read $60 million in 1 year. Would you not like to have played today?
I would love to have had an opportunity with this equipment and these conditions to play against people like Tiger Woods. Would have been a great challenge for me. Yes, it would have been nice to play first prize $1 million every week. All I won on the regular tour was 1.6 million my entire career.
The whole career?
My whole career.
1.6 million?
1.6 million. I won 3 World Series, which was another 200,000. And then on the senior tour, I won over 5 million. And so now, I mean, Tim Clark, I think Tim Clark has won 2 or 3 tournaments from South Africa. And he's won way more money than I won, and I won 165 tournaments and 18 majors. But money was not the criteria. Honestly, Ollie, I never teed up in a tournament. Even though I was poor as a kid, I wanted to be the best. I was obsessed with being the best. And so money wasn't the point. I just wanted to win those. The great kick I got was winning the event.
Gary, in 1966-67, we beat the Australians 3-1, first time ever. 5 test matches. We got a bonus of 75 Rand. And I remember we lived in a rent-control flat in Killarney, 1 month straight. I was so happy, but you know what? I will never change those days.
Exactly. We had times, you know what we did? We stayed at people who I played with in a pro-am. I always loved playing in the pro-ams. Most pros don't. I loved it because I like to go to people. A lot of celebrities like to go away from people. And I'd play in the pro-ams, and these guys would invite me and my family to stay with them in their homes. We did that week after week after week. We went to cocktail parties. We just had a great time. I played in Australia, where I played out in the boondocks in Wagga Wagga, where I hit the ball out of bounds and the members cheered because I stayed there at the dance, at their party, at their clubhouse dance that night. Things that these guys would have no idea about today. Today it's big business. And so for me, I'm very happy for them, having all this prize money, their own jets, etc. But in my time, I wouldn't change. I loved my time. I loved it.
Right, it's time for a curveball.
Yeah, but I want to just tell you, when you talk about traveling, it took Vivian and I 40 hours to get to America, 4 stops, 6 children, no disposable diapers, and stopping in some very weird places at that time. So now I get on a plane, and I get on Delta or South African Airways, and you fly straight to America non-stop, and you lie in a bed. We used to sit up like this. I traveled tourist most of my life. And now you lie back in a bed and you sleep there, and people tell me how far it is. I mean, I still travel, and I've traveled more miles than any human being ever. Over 23 million kilometers. That's 62 years of travel.
15 million miles, I read.
And that's 2 hotels a week over 62 years. Think about that. It averages out at 2 hotels a week. So it's a very abnormal life. But one thing, the most prevalent word, the most important word in my life is love and gratitude. Because I'm so grateful. I never go out of a hotel without saying thank you for that white bed, the white sheets, a bath, 3 meals a day. Never checked out of a hotel without saying a word of thanks. Every day of my life. Every day of my life I say thank you 5 times a day.
Now curveball. 1969-70 in the United States, anti-apartheid demonstrators abuse at you, direct you.
Well, I lost the PGA in 1969 at Dayton, Ohio, and they were demonstrating against apartheid so they could get at me and get all their publicity, which I understand. Actually, it was good for me. It doesn't do any harm, but at the time, it's not very nice. They threw telephone books in my back, on the top of my backswing, ice in my eyes, charged me on the greens. I threw golf ball between my legs when I was getting ready to putt, and they had 50 policemen walking around with me. And they said to me, "You can go home." I said, "No." And what I eventually did after 2 years, I went and met this particular group. And I said, "Look, you can kill me. I'm not going home." I said, "I don't believe in apartheid." I said, "You know, I've sponsored," and I told them, I said, "I've sponsored black golfers overseas. I've had tournaments, caddy for Gary, the winner of the caddy in the country, go overseas." I said, "I've sponsored tournaments with my businessmen in South Africa. I wore black and white pants at the Open at St Andrews." I said, "There are obviously people in my country never feel that I did enough. It's like a bullfighter. You've never done enough unless you get killed. But I know in my heart," and that's the great thing about my great father, Nelson Mandela. The first thing he said to me when he met me, he said, thank you for sponsoring those young black golfers overseas, and thank you for saying they should release me out of prison. Strange how he should say those two things. So I said to these guys, I'm not going to run away. If you want to kill me, in fact, kill me right now. I said, but I'll tell you what I want you to do. Pick a man out. I chose an African-American called Mr. Williams, and he came out to South Africa. I never was with him. He went to clubs. He spoke to the caddies, because I always used to buy the caddies pies and cold drinks when I came back from overseas, and I had the greatest following. And he came out here and he did a survey, and he went back and he said, we mustn't demonstrate against him anymore. I never had another date problem.
The Papua Segolen incident, which was a stain and will remain a stain in the history of this country, where he won the Natal Open. It was raining, so they couldn't go to the marquee. The white golfers were in the clubhouse, and he was given the trophy through a window in the pouring rain.
It's quite interesting, this, and I spoke to our Minister, Fikile Umbalula, who I am a great admirer of. He's the best Minister of Sport we've had, because he makes a point of finding things out. He attends all the events, gives all the encouragement. Papua Segolen, the one tournament I played in, and he beat me in the Natal Open. There was a red mat laid outside. It was drizzling. We all stood outside, and I stood right next to him when he got the trophy. We were not in the clubhouse. That is not true. Now, they did have a little trailer outside a caravan where he changed in, and where the other players changed in the white man's locker room, so to speak. But that never happened with him getting his trophy outside the window, where the players are all outside. Every prize giving that ever took place in South Africa, at every golf tournament I played in South Africa, was outside, never inside. And the other one, where they really wrote and said about Gary Player and all these funny things, I wasn't even there. I've got cuttings today and the catalogues stating that I was in America, because there was a man called Dennis Doan. He wrote, Gary Player will be missed in the Natal Open this year, but he's in America trying to make some dollars for his family. I never even played. And yet for years they said in 1963 Gary was there and this happened.
Not true.
I wasn't even in the tournament. And Papua, who was a wonderful gentleman, a terrific person, and a very good golfer, not a great golfer, but a very, very good golfer, I sponsored him to Australia. I gave him an air ticket to go to Australia. And he was such a great ambassador when he was over there. They had many members of the church and anti-South African guys saying to him, we want you to sign this and do that and say this. He said, look, I'm a South African. I love my country. He said, I don't like apartheid, but don't ask me to do these things against my country. I always admired him tremendously.
Gary, tell me about two other great golfers, not in your realm. Bobby Locke, for them. Ernie Els.
Yeah.
How good are they?
Well, Bobby Locke won 4 British Opens, so you've got to be pretty good to do that. And he won all around the world. You see, I always judge a golfer how good he is if he can win outside of his own backyard. And he was the best, well, in the top 3 best putters the world had ever known. Ernie Els, and the most beautiful golf swing. He and Sam Snead had the 2 of the most beautiful swings I ever saw. Ernie Els has done extremely well. For his ability, I don't think he's done as well as he should have done.
Is that
I think I think he was too quick to listen to other people about his swing and about his putting and about this and that, and chopped and changed a lot. And he's done extremely well, but with his talent, he should have won, I think, at least 7 major championships in his career, because this man really had the most beautiful swing. He had everything. He had the whole department. I don't know what went on in his mind. I don't know what he had inside. I can never talk about that. But tremendous talent. In fact, nobody playing the tour had more talent. Many people have got talent. It's putting the talent to the use. All I can say is he should have won more major championships.
Gary, I've read with great admiration that you've raised in excess of $50 million for charity down the years, mainly directed at young children.
Absolutely. We do it in 4 quadrants of the world. For example, in China, we've raised 60 million RMB, which is handed over to the Chinese government. In America, we've had monies raised there. In Europe, monies raised there. And in South Africa, which is my great thrill to do it over here. We've had wonderful sponsors. And the great thing for me and that, as I mentioned, my dream is to, before I die, to raise R1 billion, is to see it change the life of some young black kid in South Africa, to see his life change forever.
Is it mainly through education?
Mainly education is our theme. We built a school at Blair Athol with the help of Robbie Ray. He's been a great help there. We've built a new school here in Colesberg, a church in Colesberg. We were able to, with our funds, do all kinds of things. Pick up children in villages that they're going to die, and we send a helicopter in there and a plane, pick them up and take them to a Gary Player Award in Cape Town and save their lives. We got old black Zulu women who picking up papers in Zululand in their villages, collecting it, being recycled, getting money, planting trees, selling them, making money, buying bicycles, giving it to their children, can go to school by bike instead of walking for an hour there and an hour back. So the standard of their level of education improves because they're not exhausted when they get to school. So it's the most wonderful thing to be able to change somebody's life a little bit.
You have said that golf is the most difficult sport on this planet. Now, I've got news for you, Gary. The greatest cricketer of all time, Sir Donald Bradman, and he was a scratch golfer. He said it's the easiest game. You know why he said that? The ball is stationary. It's not moving. It's not curving. It's not swerving. How do you respond to that?
The difficulty with golf is what it does to your mind. I think that's the thing. You have so much time. With other sports, you don't have that amount of 4 days of your own individual, no team members to help you. It's all on your own, and you have all this. It's a semi-torture. And one day you're a champion, and the next day you boob. I've never seen people that were superstars in golf, which I've seen. Tom Watson never won for 10 years.
When I made the winning putt at the 72nd hole of the British Open, a joy went through my body that I had never really experienced before. And I went over to shake Jack's hand, and I'll never forget the words that Jack said. He said, "Tom, I gave you my best shot, but it wasn't good enough."
What did he have? Did he choke?
No, I think he had a few problems. I think he said himself he was an alcoholic.
Tom Watson?
Yeah,
Really?
he came out on TV and said that, and that hurt him. And then David Duval, I don't know what happened, he was #1 in the world. All of a sudden, he couldn't play at all. Ian Baker Finch, you can go down the line, and all of a sudden they're these champions, and all of a sudden they can't play. It's too exacting. You see, you hit a ball 200 yards to a hole, and a little breeze comes up and makes it a lousy shot. When it left your club, it was a good shot. Now it's a lousy shot. And it's so exacting. Now, I played all these other sports, and not to the extent that you did. Not to the extent that you did.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
But I think the conclusion I come to, sportsmen that have played other sports have come to me and said, and I've said, what about your sport as against golf now that you play? And every one of them said golf was more difficult.
Yeah. My reading about you and going through and reading about some great golfers, would I be right in saying that you were very much like Ben Hogan, or he was like you, for 3 reasons? It was practice, 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 the sheer determination to win, and playing so well under pressure. Would that be you?
It's hard for me to blow my own trumpet, but you're asking me a question, I'll answer it. I think we were very similar in our makeups, except he was pretty mean.
Why do you say mean?
Well, you know, his father committed suicide in front of him, and this guy really struggled. I mean, he traveled everywhere by car. And when they talk about the greatest players that ever lived, I find it fascinating. When he'd won about 5 majors, whatever the number was, he had to go to war for 5 years. Then he came back and had a car accident and couldn't play for another 3 years. So for 32 majors in his prime, he couldn't play. It's like Rod Laver. They all say Federer is the best tennis player ever. Rod Laver won 2 Grand Slams. He was not allowed to play for 5 years in a Grand Slam event because he was a pro and it was open only to amateurs. So people are going to be very careful who they say the best ever is. But I would like to say something about what our golfers and our sportsmen and sportswomen have done for South Africa. We've had tremendous athletes in our country, for a small country, and our golfers who are getting more publicity for South Africa than any other sport because it's every single week, every part of the world, and we got such wonderful young men. Started off with Ernie, who I just love him, and he's such a gentleman.
That's the shot of a winner.
The winner of the gold medal
medal, and the champion golfer for the year is Ernie Els.
Louis Oosthuizen and Charles Schwartzel.
2 putts for the victory. Why not? How about that finish? There is your Masters champion.
Trevor Immelman.
Golf has a new major champion.
You can go through the whole lot. I mean, all the guys that we have are wonderful young men carrying the banner of South Africa amongst the highest echelon, the biggest politicians of the world, because they play golf around the world and they do our country so much good.
Gary, in 2006, you had a charity golfing event. Was it in George or Fan Court? I was there. And they had a party. And my wife and myself watched you dance with one of your granddaughters.
Yes.
We couldn't believe it. And we could see that there was rhythm, music. Did you love singing? How did it all start?
Well, we're from Africa, man. This is where it all started. And I mean, I carry music with me, and I just love to listen to our African music, our Boer music, we are a nation of great music. And I love to sing, and I did an African song called Liza. And this guy, Barry, I just can't remember his name, he was a producer of music in London. He heard me, he said, come on, you've got to cut a record. And I did this record, and as I say, we still have it, and it did reasonably well, but it wasn't a career that I wanted to pursue.
Let's hear you sing for 30 seconds.
Well, I like Eliza with the sparkling eyes. Oh, I like Eliza 'cause she's awfully nice. I like Eliza, a disky down and brown. I like Eliza when the sun goes down.
Gary, you've been an international superstar for decades. You must have met some famous people. Tell me about it.
Well, first of all, that's something I appreciated, and I had dinner or visited the Oval Office or played golf with most of the presidents the last 50 years. I just spent 3 days in China playing with Morgan Freeman, and I just love that man. Of course,
Can he play?
He's got one arm to play with. He had a car accident, so he plays with one arm, and he loves South Africa. And I suppose, doing the movie with my great hero, President Nelson Mandela, made me have more affection for him, and we had great chats about our great father, Nelson Mandela. I have the most wonderful letter in my room. I put it on the wall. I look at it every day. This wonderful letter I got from President Mandela. I was also blessed to meet Billy Graham, who was the most incredible man. He was the most lovable, understanding, and every president asked him for advice, biblical advice, before making world decisions. They didn't always listen, maybe. But then I met all these movie stars. I had met the emirs of the Middle East. I met prime ministers and had dinner with them.
Elvis Presley?
Elvis Presley, who I just loved. I got an American show called Good Morning America or whatever the shows, and I imitated Elvis Presley, and I said, you can do anything, but don't step on my blue suede shoes. And he saw that. He said, I want to meet that guy. I said, I want to meet you. So I went down to California, and he was doing the movie Hawaii. And I walked in on him, he said, cut. He went and put a jacket on. He came out, he said, how do you do, sir? We were both 29. He said, I want to play golf. And he had a terrible grip, looked like a cow giving birth to a roll of barbed wire, like this, or born on a Harley Davidson. And he said, what do you do? I said, well, you've got to learn to wind and unwind your hips. He says, the hips? I said, yes. He says, baby, you talking to the right man. But he moved those hips like he was on the stage, like that. I mean, he was fantastic. So the people that I've met, but also I've dined in the villages of Africa and India with the poor people. And having been poor, I could associate with them. And the humility and the love that came from these people was just as impressive as it was from the world leaders. So with all these world-leading businessmen that I've been around, and then, of course, one of my great heroes, I'm so sad I never met him, was Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore. Because there's a country that was in dire straits, that today they have no guns, no drugs, no murders, no papers in the street, and he took a country that was annexed, taken over by the Japanese, and made it into the most sustainable, viable country in the world, where everybody wants to invest, and everybody wants to go, and everybody looks upon them as the model of the world. I want to say this politically. If we had the model that Singapore had, we'd be the richest country in the world per capita. We'd have 30 million tourists a year instead of 4 million. And we would have a country that no country would be able to compare to.
And Gary, I just want to say finally, it's been an absolute privilege for me to be on your farm this last 24 hours. We've had many discussions, it's been great. But I want to say unequivocally, in my opinion, and I'm sure I'm right, you have got to be the greatest sportsman this country has produced. And you can be absolutely proud of what you have achieved for your family and for South Africa.
No, I appreciate that very much. Let me give you a double shake because that's something I appreciate very much indeed. And it's all a talent that has been loaned to me. I never take credit. It's a talent that has been loaned, and I put emphasis on the word loaned.